Hi there, everyone, and welcome to the Financial Advisors Want to Know podcast. I'm Catherine Tindall, one of the partners here at Dominion Enterprise Services, a specialty tax and accounting firm that works specifically for advisors. On today's episode, we have Tony Hixon, the CEO of Hixon Zuercher, did I say that right? Capital
Zuercher.
Management, Zuercher, and co-founder of the Refocus Coaching Academy. Tony is a passionate advocate for purpose-driven retirement planning, fueled by personal tragedy and a commitment to honor his mom's legacy. So, Tony, thank you for joining me on today's episode.
Well, what an honor. Thank you, Catherine, for having me today.
So I'd love to start. I found you through the Kits' podcast and enjoyed the conversation that you had there. But for people who didn't catch you on there, I think a nice place to start is kind of the story of how, your mom's story, and then where your Refocus Coaching Academy kind of comes into play at that. So would you mind kind of starting from the beginning for people?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. And ultimately, I am passionate about the non-financial aspects of retirement, which is kind of weird coming from a co-founder of a wealth management firm. Typically, people like me really like to do Roth conversions and crunch Excel spreadsheets. But my passion has really been ignited by a personal tragedy that happened in my life a number of years ago, and why I think that focusing on the non-financial aspects of retirement are just so important. And really the story begins with my mom, and she's a registered nurse, graduated in I think the 70s, and ultimately was a floor nurse, but the long hours and swing shift proved difficult to raise her family, including me and my older sister. So she was finally able to find a job at a home health agency where there was more regular hours and a steady income. And about in the mid 80s, this is when hospice became a thing. And for us today, we know what that word means, but back in the 80s, it was new. And she just really fell in love with the idea of hospice, where the healthcare system kind of said, there's not much more we can do for the patient, and they send them home so they can be surrounded by loved ones and just their familiar surroundings as well. And it was this career that my mom found her deepest purpose, her calling, her significance, and she just loved caring for these patients as they transition from this life to the next. And that calling certainly isn't for everyone, but she found a lot of joy from that. Around mid 2000s, electronic medical records began to become a thing. And if you know my mom, she was not technologically savvy at all. And she found herself behind a computer, behind a desk all day, or most of the day, instead of bedside, which is where she preferred to be. This led to just that administrative work, bureaucracy, unable to be bedside, just led to a lot of career burnout. And ultimately, she had the idea in her mind that she just really wanted to retire, to exit the rat race and be with my dad, live on the farm, a quiet farm life that they had in Northwest Ohio. So she ran the idea past her primary financial advisor, who wasn't me. That's fine. We separated business and family. That's great. The primary financial advisor ran the numbers, pulled out her credentialing, her experience, her background, her software, and came up with the answer. And she gave my mom a green light to retire. But I was 8 years into my career at the time. This is 2010. And she allowed me to give a second opinion. And so I pulled out my software, my experience, my credentialing, and wouldn't you know, I came up with the same result. And I also gave my mom a green light to retire. And in the fall of 2010, she did. Fall of 2010, fall of any season in Northwest Ohio is welcomed by darkness and cold, right? We're heading into the winter months, and my mom didn't really do the hard work of knowing exactly what she was retiring to. Mm-hmm. She knew exactly what she was retiring from, the rat race and the burnout. But of all of the things that America promises in retirement, golfing and vacations, and she didn't do the work of really knowing what she was retiring to. And she didn't know who she was apart from her title, apart from her career. She had enough money to sleep at night, but it ended up that she didn't have enough purpose to get up in the morning. Within a few short months after retiring, she fell into a depression. And 6 months after she retired on the morning of March 22nd, 2011, my mom, Pam Hixon, chose to take her life. As you can imagine, the ripple effects of that decision were staggering. My dad, her high school sweetheart, had no one to spend his second laugh with. My sister had that special mom and daughter connection, was devastated. I was devastated. My kids, her grandkids, would now grow up without the blessing that their grandma would have on them. And I was left to pick up the pieces. Catherine, I was one of the 2 financial advisors that gave my mom the green light to retire. And to explain to you the immense amount of guilt and shame that I felt, it was tangible. But by God's grace, I chose to turn that tragedy into triumph, that stumbling block into stepping stones. And not all at once, but over time, I began to understand what led my mom to that decision. And I knew it wasn't enough to just run the numbers through a software. I knew that we needed to come up with a way to focus on the non-financial aspects of retirement to help our clients understand how to make their future bigger than their past, to make their second half matter, to wake up each and every day and express their purpose and significance apart from their career. And that's what I do each and every day. And it's what makes our firm unique and different. And I'm excited to explore a conversation on how I can help your audience do the same.
Yeah, because I think, I'm in a similar situation where, as an analytical person, you want to reduce everybody to just, okay, the numbers work, right?
Correct.
But as I've gotten farther in my career, and, thank you so much for sharing your story, because that's a quite heavy thing to carry for people.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're turning this into, okay, how do I prevent this from happening to somebody else? How do I build a system? How do I build a methodology? How do I build something to prevent this from happening? And in particular, seeing the importance of the financial advisor in that situation, right? Of, it's so challenging when you have the analytical answer, but having the non-financial answer. So for the advisors who are listening, with kind of your harrowing story in mind of, oh, when I tell a client it's okay to retire, or we're thinking about these bigger ticket issues, where do I even start with making sure that I'm taking account, as I like to say, taking account for the assets and liabilities that are not showing up on the financial statements, right? So for other advisors who are realizing, oh, I've really got my game down in terms of the number crunching, where do you think is a good place for them to start in terms of addressing some of these bigger behavioral questions, or things that you see, and kind of the lesson that you learned through your own tragedy that your family experienced? And then also on the flip side, it was a professional tragedy too, because it was something you didn't see coming, or the other advisor. So where would you say is a good place for advisors who might not even be thinking about this, for them to start to be able to come up with a solution for the non-financial pieces?
Yeah, I think, Catherine, number one, the fact that they're listening to this podcast is a great start, and it shows your care for your listeners and your platform. So I appreciate that you would engage me in this conversation. We're really starting the conversation in our industry that it's not enough to check the financial boxes. We've done that for far too long, and ultimately, that type of mindset is really being commoditized. And we really need to provide a more unique value proposition to our clients. And ultimately, Catherine, my mom was a nurse, and as such, she cared for her patients well. And as a financial advisor, I care for my clients well. And the amount of caring that we can do, we have a front row seat to the knowledge of our clients' retirement. What a disservice! I wouldn't say disservice. We're not providing a full service if we don't care for the non-financial aspects. And so when you're asking, well, how do you make that happen? Well, we have some tactical things, and I'd love to share those. But ultimately, the first step is knowing that it's an issue, that your client wants that from you, that your client probably isn't going to go to their pastor or their clergyman. They may have told a few friends. Everyone's excited about retirement, but in the end, they're the ones who are living that first 6 months. And in retirement, apart from their career, statistics would show that within the first 6 months of retirement, depression and anxiety is very prevalent. And so it takes a while. I know my mom's story is an anomaly. Not every retirement ends in suicide. But I would say that if you're in a front row seat to help your client and prevent them from experiencing any form of depression and anxiety, shouldn't you be working on that? I think so. And it also, statistics would also reveal that divorce rates spike within the first 2 years of retirement. Why? Well, it's because spouses had a bit of healthy separation during their career, and they're now together all the time. And you're in each other's hair, you're underfoot. And if you're not really just prepared for being together, what it means to live a second half together without a career for that separation, you're going to be woefully unprepared for that person that confronts you each and every day, that you married and you still love them, but man, they get annoying after a while. So what a great honor and responsibility we have to help marriages stay together, right? It's not enough to do Roth conversions. It's not enough to do tax planning and tax mitigation. Those are important, 100% yes. And it's 100% important for us to help our clients engage in their purpose and significance in their second half as well.
Yeah. And I wonder what your suggestions are, because I know, everybody has different levels of aptitude in terms of like their own cognitive ability. And you have I know for myself as an advisor, like my strength is really on the analytical side and not as much on the empathetic side, just from the way, I'm wired. And I wonder, for people who are listening who are like, oh, that sounds like that's going to be a real challenge for me to learn how to do this.
Yep.
Do you have suggestions around maybe a break point between, okay, do you need to have maybe another team member who this is their specialty with having some of these harder conversations that you bring in? Or, do you think that every advisor should be capable of having these conversations themselves? Or like, what have you seen people be able to practically implement some of these ideas and some of this reframing of the context of what your firm's relationship to the client services? Maybe not necessarily you as an individual advisor, but just in the space of wealth management, it's how do you accomplish this goal? What have you seen people implementing effectively? Because I know for a lot of people, having conversations at this level is maybe beyond, what they're going to be able to be comfortable and competent at, just given their skill set.
Yeah, I got several answers that are coming to mind. You're absolutely right. This is the financial side of things is very analytical. It checks a lot of boxes, and people sometimes don't just have the personality to want to deal with the mushy side, the non-financial aspects, the softer side of a relationship. And so in those type of contexts, yeah, I think you should hire a life coach. If it's important enough to you to deal with the financial side, it should also be important for you to deal with the non-financial side of your client's life as well. And so in our context, because our advisors are very competent and skilled in dealing with the financial side, we've undertaken the extra investment to onboard a life coach in our firm. And so this particular person deals with just the non-financial aspects of our clients' lives. We put up an iron curtain. Our life coach knows nothing about the financial side of our clients, and vice versa. Our advisors don't know much about the struggles that they might be going through with our life coach as well. That being said, not every advisory firm, RIA, IBD, all of them, they may not have the budget to be able to do that. And so I don't want to, far be it from me, Catherine, to turn this into a sales call. If this becomes a sales call, I apologize. You can cut this out of the podcast. But what we've done is we've actually created an academy, because we've responded to questions just like you had. I don't know what to do. And so in the academy, a Refocus Coaching Academy, we're teaching the advisor exactly what questions to ask. We're teaching them the content that they can sit across the table from their client with, and really pull out the questions and pull out the aspects of a non-financial side of retirement to really help their clients even know that this is an issue, even consider that no one's talking about this. They need to. And so through this academy, we offer the slides, the worksheets, and the way to be able to communicate this content to the clients in their particular setting.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it's, we're kind of at time here. So this is a perfect, way to kind of wrap up the conversation. You shared with us that you have some free resources for people to be able to access on the Refocus Coaching Academy, Refocus coaching.academy/resources. It'll be wherever you're listening to this, nearby in the show notes. And then also to connect with you through that Refocus Coaching.academy to be able to get, some support if this is something where you've realized that maybe there's a need on your team, or, you want to do the self-education as a practice of how do you approach these mushy, as you said, conversations, and being prepared for knowing when they need to happen and having the resources to manage them well. I love that suggestion of having an internal life coach, especially with a partition that gives them somebody to talk to, because, a lot of people, I think too, just around mental health issues, there's a lot of fear around admitting that you need some kind of support. And, especially around retirement, it's just, there's so many huge changes that are happening for people across the whole spectrum of their whole life, financial, like 9 to 5, spouse relationship, sense of purpose, et cetera. That being able to provide them that support in maybe a softer way, where it's not going to trigger them thinking, oh, I don't need therapy. I'm bigger than that. I'm an adult. I don't need that. In a way that if you're pairing that with the financial advising, it's a really nice soft way to be able to bring that in, where it's not going to hit that same trigger and allows you to, have more insight. Yeah.
Really agree. Yeah. And we've been very intentional about therapy is backwards looking. What happened in your past? What were you a victim of? We offer coaching, and coaching is getting the best out of a player, right? Yeah. And it's helping this player play the second half well. And that's how we really position the messaging, is to ensure that our clients live their second half to the best of their ability, and we coach the best out of them.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Tony, for joining me for this brief and deep conversation. So for people looking to connect with Tony, they're nearby in the show notes will be links to the Refocus Coaching Academy, and then how you can get connected to learn more about the programs that they offer and tools that they have available for advisors looking to get into this.
And to Catherine, sorry, if your listeners would like to learn more about the story of my mom, certainly buy the book. All proceeds from the sale of the book, Retirement Stepping Stones, available on Amazon. All proceeds go to benefit the Pam Hixon Memorial Nursing Scholarship Fund that my wife and I set up at a local university, and the scholarship goes to a nursing student who displays financial need and good grades. So it's a good cause. It's a good read, and hopefully the book would also help your advisor, your listener, understand the story more and the impact that they too can have on their clients in their respective contexts as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me, Tony.
Thanks for having me.